The sky was streaked with the fading light of evening, and the lake shimmered beneath the hues of red and blue flashing gently across its surface. I gave one final tug on the rope, securing my boat to the dock with a cleat hitch, just as the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the weathered wooden boards. 2 uniformed officers drew closer, their heavy boots falling in a measured rhythm. The taller of the 2, Officer Martinez, gave a polite but firm cough before speaking. "Sir, we received a report regarding trespassing and unauthorized docking here at the marina." Even before I turned my head, I already knew who was behind it. From the corner of my eye, I caught the unmistakable silhouette of a woman with tightly crossed arms and a halo of aggressively bleached blonde hair. Patricia Hendress, or as most of the neighborhood sarcastically referred to her, our resident Karen. She stood watching from the edge of the lot, her expression one of smug satisfaction. No doubt she thought she'd finally cornered me. But to understand how things reached this point, me being questioned by police over tying up my own boat, we have to rewind a few months. 3 months earlier, I became the proud owner of a house by the lake in the Sunset Shores subdivision. It wasn't just the beautiful craftsmanship or the peaceful view that won me over. What sealed the deal was the added bonus that came with the purchase: a controlling 51% ownership of the adjacent Sunset Marina. It was a rare and unusual arrangement left in place by Frank Morrison, the elderly man who had owned and managed the marina since the early days when this place was little more than swampland. He had held on to majority rights through decades of development, and when he passed, his estate offered me a package deal I couldn't pass up. Enter Patricia Hendress. For the past 7 years, she'd ruled over Sunset Shores as the HOA president, a self-appointed enforcer of all things trivial. Her reign was built on passive-aggressive newsletters and surprise rule revisions, and she took particular pride in monitoring the marina like it was her personal kingdom. If someone's wind chimes were too melodic or their garden gnome too whimsical, Patricia would find a regulation to quote. She showed up at my doorstep the very first week I moved in, clutching a fake smile, a wicker basket, and a 3-inch thick binder. "Welcome to Sunset Shores," she chirped. "I've taken the liberty of highlighting the most important HOA guidelines for you. Do pay close attention to the sections covering watercraft rules." I thanked her and placed the binder on a shelf, intending to look through it later. That, it turns out, was my first offense in Patricia's eyes. My absence from a hastily organized new resident integration meeting the following week only made matters worse. And when I finally brought my 24-foot cabin cruiser to the marina, nothing fancy but something I deeply cherished, she saw red. She swooped in like a hawk, blocking my path with a clipboard in hand. "You can't launch that here without HO authorization," she said, lips twitching in anticipation of the confrontation. I calmly explained that I lived at 47 Waterfront Drive, and that, more importantly, I had majority ownership of the marina itself. For a moment she was speechless. Then came the protests, the denials, the threats of immediate review by the board. That was only the beginning. Over the following weeks, she turned our quiet lakeside neighborhood into a theater of absurdity. She spammed the community mailing list with overblown subject lines. "Unauthorized vessel endangers community," or "boat owner jeopardizes property values." She organized morning walks past my dock, where neighbors would shake their heads dramatically and whisper critiques about negligent boating standards. She filed complaints first with the HOA board, then the local marina authority, and even the Coast Guard civilian outreach. Every time, I calmly responded with scanned documents proving my ownership and legal rights. But Patricia wasn't looking for the truth. She wanted control. Her obsession escalated. She began taking photos of my boat from odd angles to make it look unkempt, complained about how it was parked 3 inches outside of some non-existent boundary line, and even hired a so-called marine consultant, who turned out to be her nephew with a fishing pole and a printed business card. The tipping point came during the monthly HOA meeting. Patricia commandeered the podium and delivered a dramatic 45-minute PowerPoint presentation titled "The Boat Problem: A Clear and Present Danger." It was filled with blurry images, red arrows, and ominous claims about neighborhood aesthetics. When she finally wrapped up, I stood and walked to the front of the room. Connecting my phone to the projector, I displayed the original deed, corporation filings, and county tax documents. In a clear, calm voice, I explained the legal structure. The marina existed as a separate legal entity from the HOA, and as its majority owner, I held the authority to manage all operations, including slip usage. The HOA had no power over the marina. The room buzzed with murmurs. Several board members looked uncomfortable, possibly realizing they'd been enabling harassment. Patricia, on the other hand, flushed a deep crimson. "You can't just take over," she cried. "I've managed this marina for years." "I didn't take anything," I replied, holding up the signed transfer documents. "I bought it. All legal, all filed. Want to see the property tax assessments?" 2 days later, I returned from a calm morning cruise to find the flashing lights of a police cruiser waiting at the dock. Patricia had dialed 911, claiming I was trespassing and illegally docking on HOA land. Officer Martinez listened carefully while I showed him my documents. His partner, Officer Chun, looked like he was barely holding in a laugh. Patricia stood nearby, fuming, arms crossed like a coiled snake. After reviewing the documents, Officer Martinez turned to her and said in a steady voice, "Ma'am, this gentleman owns the marina. He can't trespass on property he legally controls." Patricia's voice shot up an octave. "But the HOA has standards. This is a violation of everything we represent." Officer Chun looked at her, then at me, and with the faintest trace of amusement said, "Ma'am, your HOA doesn't override county records." She stood there speechless, her face twitching as her last thread of control unraveled. I simply stepped back onto my boat and smiled. Sometimes the best way to deal with a tyrant is to let the facts do the talking, and enjoy the view while you're at it. The golden reflection of the setting sun shimmered on the water as I secured the last rope to the dock. Just as I stood to stretch my back, 2 uniformed officers made their way toward me, their footsteps heavy against the planks. The taller one stepped forward and addressed me in a firm tone. "Ma'am, making a false emergency call is considered a misdemeanor. You've misused public services over what seems to be a personal conflict." In the days that followed, the incident spread like wildfire through our tight-knit community. Residents of the marina quickly caught wind of Patricia's failed attempt to weaponize the police. One by one, slip renters approached me, sharing their own frustrations with her controlling behavior. Tom Bradley from Unit 12 mentioned she tried to get his kayak banned for being too bright. Sarah Chan from Unit 33 told me Patricia once demanded she submit a written essay to justify her right to rent a slip. I decided it was time to take action. An emergency meeting was called for all those involved with the marina. When I arrived at the community center, the place was packed. I stood before them and laid out a clear vision. "We're starting with dock improvements, new cleats, proper lighting, and actual safety gear," I announced with genuine optimism. Applause broke out. "Second, slip assignments will be handled fairly, based on availability and transparent pricing, not on who joins Patricia's book club." As the energy in the room built, I continued, "And finally, we're doing away with all the arbitrary aesthetics rules. If your boat is safe and you're respectful, you're welcome." In the back row, Patricia sat rigid, her jaw clenched. When I opened the floor to comments, she shot up and hissed, "This is a coup. You're ruining what made Sunset Shores special." Before I could respond, George, a longtime resident, stood slowly and addressed her with quiet authority. "Patricia, the only thing being ruined is your chokehold over this place. We're tired of living in fear of citations." The room erupted in agreement. People began sharing horror stories. The ban on garden gnomes in 2019, the mailbox paint war of 2020, and the bird feeder crackdown that caused several families to move out. Once everyone had spoken, I returned to the podium. "From now on," I said evenly, "the marina will function independently from the HOA, and we are implementing a zero-tolerance harassment policy. Anyone caught intimidating or falsely reporting marina users will be permanently barred." Patricia's lawyer, Jeffrey Williams, leaned in to whisper urgently, but she ignored him and shouted, "You can't do this. I'll sue. I'll go to the state board. I'll call the press." But her tirade was interrupted when HOA Vice President Michael Torres rose and declared, "I propose a vote of no confidence in our current HOA president for misuse of authority and risking legal exposure." The vote was swift. 17 supported the motion, 2 opposed, and Patricia's own sister abstained. Patricia sat frozen in disbelief as Michael continued, "I also propose we formally separate HOA governance from marina operations, recognizing Mr. Johnson's ownership and authority." That motion passed without objection. Clutching her handbag, Patricia stormed toward the exit, pausing only to turn and snarl, "This isn't over. You'll regret this." But her threats fell on indifferent ears. The very next day I posted the new Marina rules, simple, fair, focused on safety. A fresh sign was mounted at the entrance. Sunset Marina, privately owned. Respectful residents welcome. 2 weeks later, Patricia applied for a slip, having purchased a small sailboat. No doubt she hoped to regain influence. I reviewed her file carefully. Between the false emergency call, her harassment of renters, and the pending misdemeanor charge, the decision was easy. I marked her application with a firm denied, along with a note explaining the reasons. The decision I made clear was final. When she showed up at the Marina office seething and shouting for all to hear, "You can't deny me, I built this place. I am Sunset Shores." I calmly looked up from my paperwork and replied, "There's a public marina 6 miles north. I hear they're very strict on HOA regulations." Her attempts to challenge my ownership legally fell flat, draining her financially. Eventually, she had no choice but to sell her house. Her final HOA meeting was brief and awkward. She sat in silence as the board repealed dozens of her outdated and punitive rules. As for me, I installed one last thing at my dock. A modest sign that read "Private Slip Owner Operated." Under new leadership, the marina flourished. Families returned. Children fished off the docks again. Sunset evenings passed in peace, free of surveillance, fines, or drama. Patricia's plan to push me out backfired spectacularly. Instead of removing me, she exposed her own abuses to the entire neighborhood. Her false 911 call led to a $3,000 fine and 40 hours of community service. Her removal from office was unanimous. The local paper even ran a story titled "HOA President Ousted After Power Misuse," and her reputation as a real estate agent took a major hit. When she found out about the criminal penalties, she could only whisper, stunned, "$3,000 for one phone call?" Her lawyer sighed and replied, "You're lucky it wasn't worse."